You know that moment, the one where you're staring at your phone after they pulled away again. Maybe they got cold after a deep conversation. Maybe they disappeared after hurting you. Maybe they acted like nothing happened while you sat there carrying the weight of what they said, what they didn't say, and what you know they did. And the room feels weirdly still, too. Still, like your body is waiting for something your heart already knows might not come. And inside it's just this: why do I always have to bring it up? Do they even care that they hurt me? If they loved me, wouldn't they say sorry on their own? Am I asking for too much? Why does wanting basic accountability make me feel needy? But here's the truth most people miss. An avoidant doesn't stay silent because your pain means nothing. They stay silent because shame shuts them down faster than guilt opens them up. You're not failing at love. This is not proof you chose the wrong person. And honestly, every person who has ever loved someone emotionally withdrawn has stood exactly where you're standing. By the end of this video, you'll understand the one shift that makes an avoidant far more likely to apologize genuinely, what pushes them deeper into silence, and how to create the kind of emotional safety that makes real repair possible. Let's get into it. Most couples believe that if someone hurts you, the only healthy response is to confront it harder, repeat it clearer, and keep pushing until they finally admit what they did. But the real truth is this: when you're dealing with an avoidant partner, pressure rarely creates accountability. It creates defense, and that's the part no one explains. Most people think avoidant behavior is about not caring, but beneath the surface, it's usually about overwhelm. Their nervous system is reading emotional intensity before their mind can even organize words. So the moment they sense blame, disappointment, or the possibility that they've failed you, their body often moves into protection before their heart gets a chance to stay present. That doesn't excuse the hurt, not even a little, but it does explain the pattern. What looks like indifference is often shame with the lights off. What looks like stonewalling is usually someone who has been so flooded for so long that silence feels safer than saying the wrong thing. And when safety leaves a relationship, love doesn't disappear, it goes underground. This is why most couples get stuck. One person wants repair through pressure, the other wants relief through distance, and suddenly you're not having one conflict, you're trapped in a cycle. The more you pursue, the more they withdraw. The more they withdraw, the more abandoned you feel. And the more abandoned you feel, the harder you push. That is not incompatibility, that is an attachment cycle. So if you want an avoidant to apologize, not perform one, not fake one, not mumble one to end the conversation, but actually feel and offer repair, then the goal is not to overpower their defenses. The goal is to lower them. Not more chasing, not better arguments, not the perfect paragraph text at 1:12 a.m., but an emotional environment where accountability feels survivable. And here's what changes everything. A real apology usually comes after an avoidant feels safe enough to stop protecting themselves, not before. 1. Stop chasing the apology. Most couples think, if they don't keep bringing up the hurt, it'll get buried forever. So they repeat the pain, restate the facts, and push for acknowledgement right now, because waiting feels like self-betrayal. But here's the deeper truth. For an avoidant, relentless pursuit can feel like emotional cornering. And when their nervous system feels cornered, it does what smoke detectors do. It sounds the alarm, not because the whole house is burning down, but because it cannot tell the difference between emotional discomfort and actual danger. So instead of thinking, I hurt you and I need to own that, their body is often screaming, I'm trapped, I'm failing, get me out of here. The disconnecting version sounds like this. Why can't you just admit what you did? I've explained it 5 times. The connecting version sounds like this. I'm not going to force this conversation right now, but what happened hurt me, and I do want us to come back to it when we're both able to be real. That lands differently. It still has a boundary, but it removes the emotional ambush. And when you do that, the walls between you start to come down, without either of you having to say a word. 2. Trade accusation for impact. Here's the part no one talks about. Most couples lead with accusation, because pain naturally wants a target. You feel hurt, so you point straight at the behavior and say it in the sharpest way possible, hoping clarity will create accountability. Usually it doesn't. Usually it creates defense, because accusation says you are the problem. Impact says this is what happened inside me, and those are not the same thing. Most people in relationships don't realize that an avoidant often hears criticism as rejection, even when you deliver it calmly. So when you say, "You never care how your actions affect me," what lands beneath the surface is, "I'm bad, I'm disappointing, I'm unsafe here," and shame makes people hide. The disconnecting version sounds like this: "You were selfish. You knew exactly what you were doing." The connecting version sounds like this: "When you pulled away after I opened up, I felt alone, and honestly kind of foolish for trusting the moment. That's the part that hurt." Now you've given them something they can meet. Something human, something real. Her brain may quietly register: "He's not attacking me, he's letting me see him." His mind may soften into: "She isn't trying to win right now. She's trying to be understood." That's when your partner stops feeling like a problem to manage and starts feeling like a person to come home to. 3. Name the pattern without becoming it. And this is the one most couples never figure out. Most couples either overreact inside the cycle or underreact inside the cycle. They either explode or suppress, chase or shut down, beg or go cold. But here's what nobody explains. The healing move is not becoming smaller, and it's not becoming louder. It's becoming clearer. This isn't a communication hack. This is what emotional maturity looks like. If you want an avoidant to apologize, you have to learn how to describe the cycle without performing your side of it in real time. Because the second you become pure protest, they become pure withdrawal. And now the original hurt is gone. The pattern is driving. The disconnecting version sounds like this: "You do this every single time. You disappear. I get upset. And then somehow I'm the bad guy. I'm done." The connecting version sounds like this: "I think we're in that place again where I get more direct because I'm hurt. And then you get more distant because you feel overwhelmed. I don't want to stay in that cycle with you." That sentence is powerful because it isn't blame. It isn't surrender either. It's awareness. It's presence. It's you refusing to let the pattern speak for you. And when you do that, the relationship stops feeling like two people fighting each other and starts feeling like two people finally seeing what has been fighting both of them. 4. Give space that still feels connected. This is where it gets really interesting. Most couples misunderstand space completely. One person uses it to avoid. The other hears it as abandonment. So "I need space" becomes one of the most loaded phrases in the entire relationship. But real space is not disappearance. It's regulated distance with a bridge still attached. Not ghosting. Not punishment. Not silent treatment with better branding, but intentional room to settle, so repair can actually happen. Most people in relationships don't realize that when an avoidant asks for space, what they often need is nervous system decompression. But if that space comes with zero reassurance, your system reads it as you're on your own, and then you protest harder next time. So the shift is this: allow space, but define the return. The disconnecting version sounds like this: "Fine, go, do whatever you want." Or this: "No, we're talking about this right now." The connecting version sounds like this: "I can give us a little space if that's what helps you come back more honestly, but I need us to reconnect tonight or tomorrow because I don't do unresolved distance." Do you hear that? Warmth and backbone, safety and self-respect. Something in him starts saying, "She's not controlling me, but she's not disappearing either." Something in her begins to feel, "He isn't leaving me, he's regulating." That's the shift that turns relationship that feels like a negotiation into one that feels like a refuge. 5. Make repair easier than defensiveness. And here's what changes everything. Most couples unintentionally make repair feel harder than avoidance. The moment the avoidant finally comes back, the energy is so loaded, so sharp, so emotionally expensive that their system immediately wants to retreat again. So they give you half answers, or logic, or silence, anything but softness. But here's the deeper emotional truth. People move toward what feels survivable. If apology feels like stepping into a courtroom, they stay defended. If apology feels like stepping into a human moment, they are much more likely to come forward. This does not mean making it easy for them to escape accountability. It means making it possible for them to enter accountability without collapsing into shame. The disconnecting version sounds like this: "So, are you finally ready to admit you were wrong?" The connecting version sounds like this: "I don't need perfection from you. I just need honesty. If part of you knows I got hurt, I'd rather hear that imperfectly than watch us keep drifting." That line matters a lot, because now their internal monologue can shift from whatever I say will be used against me to maybe I can actually try here. Emotional distance isn't like a wall, it's more like scar tissue. It forms slowly over 100 small moments that never got repaired, and apology is one of the few things that softens it. When you make repair more accessible than defensiveness, you give love somewhere to land again. 6. Hold the boundary after the apology. Here's the part most people miss. Most couples think the apology is the finish line. It isn't. It's the doorway, because an avoidant can sometimes apologize just to reduce tension, and you can sometimes accept it just to feel relief. But relief is not repair, and tension reduction is not trust. Not words without change, not tears without ownership, not one soft conversation followed by the same emotional disappearance next week, but consistent repair that your body can actually believe. This is where you show who you're becoming. Not controlling, not self-abandoning, just clear. The disconnecting version sounds like this. Okay, it's fine. Forget it. The connecting version sounds like this. Thank you for saying that. That matters to me. And what will help me trust this more is seeing us handle moments like this differently going forward. That is powerful, because you received the apology, but you didn't disappear inside it. Most couples skip this. They rush past the moment, because the pain of not getting repair felt so intense that once they finally get it, they don't want to risk losing it. But secure love isn't built by clinging to crumbs. It's built by staying present enough to ask for what makes connection sustainable. And when you do that, apology stops being a reset button and starts becoming the beginning of something more real. 7. Become the safe mirror, not the emotional prosecutor. And this is the deepest point of all. Most couples believe the person who hurts more should be allowed to come in hotter, and emotionally, that makes sense. Pain wants witnesses. Pain wants justice. But when you're with an avoidant, the apology you want usually arrives when you stop trying to extract it and start reflecting reality, so clearly, so calmly, and so firmly that they can finally see themselves without feeling annihilated. That is not weakness. That is power with presence. This isn't about being nice. It isn't about swallowing pain. It isn't about becoming endlessly understanding while your needs go unmet. It's about learning how to hold up a mirror without turning it into a weapon. The disconnecting version sounds like this. You always do damage and then act like the victim. The connecting version sounds like this. I care about you, and I know you probably shut down when this feels heavy. But I also need you to see that your distance after hurting me creates another layer of pain. That's the part one need you to take in. That sentence invites contact. It doesn't beg for it. It doesn't force it. It invites it. And here's what nobody explains. When an avoidant feels truly seen without being emotionally pinned to the wall, something often softens beneath the surface. Their defenses stop working so hard. Their shame has less to fight against. And then, sometimes quietly, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes later than you wanted, the apology comes. Maybe not perfect. Maybe not cinematic. But real. Maybe it's I know I hurt you. Maybe it's I shut down because I felt overwhelmed. But that doesn't make what I did okay. Maybe it's you didn't deserve that. And when that happens, it feels different because for once you're not dragging accountability out of them. They're choosing it. That's the moment the relationship stops feeling like emotional survival and starts feeling like two nervous systems learning how to stay. So, no. This is not about saying the perfect magic sentence and suddenly making an avoidant apologize. It's deeper than that. It's about becoming someone who knows how to create safety without collapsing, hold truth without attacking, and ask for repair without losing yourself in the process. That changes you, and you can feel it. You stop reacting from raw panic and start responding from grounded self-respect. And your partner feels that shift before they can even explain why. Your presence gets steadier. Your words get cleaner. Your love gets more emotionally available. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're finally stepping out of the cycle. These aren't tips for getting someone back in line. They're the beginning of becoming the kind of partner you always wanted someone to be for you. And the truth is simple. The apology you've been craving often begins the moment your pain stops chasing and starts standing.